Good morning, NRF, and welcome to retail's biggest show on earth. We're broadcasting live from booth 4250 with FreedomPay, and I'm Dale Lazick, senior writer at the Green Sheet, and I'm thrilled to be here in the beating heart of retail. And today, I want to thank NRF, FreedomPay, and Market Scale for your hospitality. And I'm delighted to have you all with me on site and virtually to explore next level commerce. And before we get started, I just want to take a minute to reflect on our previous roundtables, going all the way back to 2020, in the heart of the pandemic. We explored how advanced technologies are powering America's economic recovery. And the following year, we reconvened twice for two more roundtables. And we looked at next level commerce and how retailers are innovating and iterating. And then we went back again and we celebrated retail resilience. Arguably, this has been the greatest stress test our industry has ever known. And today, we're back, and I'm thrilled to be live and in person with the industry thought leaders from retail and technology, Castles Technology, Spectrum Stores, ELO, and FreedomPay. We're all together, and the theme today is Unleash the Power of Pay. And this coincides with a white paper of the same title. I highly encourage you to read it. It's great reading. And I'd like to also share the objective for today. It's a threefold agenda. We're going to look at the current commerce landscape. We're going to look ahead to near-term retail and the trends that are shaping the future of retail. And finally, we're going to offer some real strategies for retail success. And I'd like to give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves and also share a fun fact about your FreedomPay partnerships.
All right. Happy to go first, and thank you, Dale, so much for moderating the event. We appreciate it very much. And to our fellow panelists. I'm Chris Golenthal, president of FreedomPay.
All right. Craig Witzel, CEO for ELO.
Linda Harris, vice president for Spectrum Stores.
Ben Love recently took over from the wonderful Mr. Winston Fong at Castles Technology as CEO. You did ask us for a fun fact. So I've watched FreedomPay from afar for many, many years. I've spoken at conferences and always referred to FreedomPay as a great example of how our industry should be, how they drive technology, drive the right things for their clients. But only yesterday did I find out where the name FreedomPay originated from, which I'm not going to say. You can ask Tom. Thanks, Dale.
Thank you. It's great to be here with all of you. And I'd like to kick this off by asking Chris, you know, here at the FreedomPay booth, we are literally surrounded by examples of next level commerce and advanced technologies. And they're all so incredibly different and diverse. But when you think about that, are there any common core characteristics of these technologies that I'd like to know your thoughts about core principles and how they can help retailers address threats and opportunities.
It's a great question, and I think really one of the common themes that we see, we experience, I'm sure all the partners experience, is really, technology convergence. If I'm a merchant and I'm trying to innovate or keep up with my digital customers' demands, I have to introduce technology rapidly into my ecosystem. So it's really almost a broader story of interoperability, right? To unleash the power of pay, will you need all the different pieces of your ecosystem to work together? So I think that's what we see certainly with our partners that we're working with to integrate to our platform, their respective systems, which I know they're going to speak about, like how do they pull together all the technology? How do we converge these complex solutions for merchants so that they can really create the best environment for their consumers, so that they have more seamless interactions. They have a horizontal ecosystem where they can recognize that consumer at the start of the journey, as the demand cycle peaks, during the checkout process, and almost more importantly, because all of those technology assets are integrated, they can see that holistic data and they can start to study that journey and how to make it more effective each time that consumer goes through. So I think that's really the broader thing that we see today at the show, and I think we're happy to dig into today.
Wow, thank you. Those are great points, Chris. And I think when it comes to improving the customer experience, it's something that Belinda and her team are very focused on at Spectrum stores. And I'd really like to get your perspective as a retailer on how these converging technologies can enhance the customer journey and help retailers meet customers wherever they are.
Thank you, Dale. One of the things I always like to keep in mind is customers have buying power. They have a significant amount of buying power in our products and services, but also they've got options. So why not invest in technology and creating a customer experience that is delightful for our customers? But through the creation of that experience, it's really important to also insert different experiences throughout that customers become almost advocates for your product. They really enjoy the product. They want to go out and tell their family, friends, to really use your product and service. And one of the things when we think about kind of like the ecosystem, just to give a couple of examples, one would be you want to definitely maybe do some journey mapping or even just evaluating what the customer experience is and really assess where you've got some area of opportunity. Look at using technology to really reduce frictionless experience, not just for the customer, but also for your store personnel, and really empower your personnel.
Wow, thank you, Belinda. And don't mind if I take notes. This is actually a very big story that I've been chasing for a while. But I also want to say we're very fortunate to have payment technology leaders with us today. And I would like to get Ben's and Craig's perspective on what next level commerce looks like from a payment technology standpoint.
Yeah. Listen, I think that along some of the same themes that you've both talked about, what we see is that one is open architecture is critical, right? So partners like us being able to work together so that we can build a solution for you that helps your customers. And the other part of that is not only should the architecture be open, but it should be as unified as possible. So that once you do one application in a store, you can do more applications simply, easily, and they kind of all fit together, almost like Legos.
Right.
So for example, we might see places where we'll put in technology for just, the standard point of sale. It's great, it works, and the payment technology's in there. Now someone wants to do self-checkout. Now someone wants to do RFID checkout. Then they want to do price checkers. Then it's always going to change. But if the Lego kit is the same, then you can do a lot of different things, react to that customer, one, without spending a fortune, two, quickly, and at least from all the retailers I know, at some point you're going to change your mind and adjust. And so we want to make it easy to do that because your customer is adjusting, and we're all learning, especially coming out of COVID. I mean, there's learning everywhere here.
Great point.
Great point.
I love the Lego bricks technology piece. I use that a lot as well. That's largely what we have to do is to put together these pieces of technology. I mean, for us, so we're right at that point where the marketing's been done, the customers come in, they're ready to pay, and you want that to be just absolutely perfect, right? If that works, then they come back again. We'll talk a little bit about the consumer habit cycle. And for our industry, I have props. So every time the form of currency changes, So the function changes. So we went from cash, you had to collect cash, so a lot of treasury management there, to cards. Cards are great, a lot of utility to that, a lot of data that's generated to your point earlier where now you can start to see trends, where people shop, what they prefer, etc. With COVID, the advance of contactless, especially here in the US, has brought about a different set of functions where you don't no longer have little coins bagging up your pockets. And next up is your mobile device, and then whatever comes after that. So we're very excited to see what function changes when the form changes to mobile and everything that can happen there. So today it's really just card on a mobile phone, which gives you a natural extension of technologies and use cases. But then we took, like you were saying earlier, when you start to watch people and how they change their habits of doing things, you start to see different types of problems that exist well, at the point of sale, but in the retail line, that these new technologies could easily be introduced. So it's a remarkable time for our industry.
I totally agree. It's a very exciting time, and in part two of our discussion, we look ahead to the near-term retail landscape and some of the opportunities and that are right ahead of us. And I think it's very fitting to open up this session with a retailer. And Belinda, you have thousands of stores as an enterprise scale retailer all over the United States. And I'd like to ask you, how do trends shape retail in 2023?
Thank you, Dale. So trends are really a critical and probably one of many data points in a retailer's business as they kind of build their business models, and also as you're kind of looking at the customer experience as well as introducing technology. We tend to look at industry trends, but also just understanding about our customers' behaviors, what are their preferences, and through all of that information, we're able to then create a customer experience that is ideal for them. But you touched on something earlier, and it's just like you can create something today, but tomorrow it may be outdated. So you're constantly looking at that information. The one thing I would add is we like to also talk to our employees. So we have a program that we talk firsthand with our employees to understand how that experience is going for them. So it's not just looking at it from a customer's perspective, but also from the sales specialist. But also taking all that information that we even gather from customers' surveys, and then that helps us to just continue to refine these. So those trends and data is really critical to that.
I think that's a great point. And when I reflect on how far we've come as an industry, and I mean, as an industry and as a retail industry, but also as a payments industry, it's amazing to me to think about how much more flexible we've become, how much more open and interoperable we've become. And I think that's reflected in what you said about it's not just a customer-facing experience anymore. It's a clerk-facing experience. Your devices can be facing a clerk, or they could be facing a customer. You no longer ask, is that a terminal or a pen pad? Because the answer is, what would you like it to be? So along those lines, Craig, I'd like to ask you, you're intimately involved in all of this technology. You work with major retailers, helping them leverage technology. And there's all different types. You're trying to make people feel safe, secure, engaged. So what emerging trends are you seeing in retail? And how can they potentially impact all of the various touch points across all retail channels?
Well, I tell you, I think you a little bit gave the answer there, which is all the touch points, right? Because, and that's really what we see, is that sometimes it works for an associate to have a mobile, that they can do the payment right there on the mobile, or they can check something. Sometimes it works, frankly, peak holiday times, just the standard cash rack register works wonderfully. It's fast, it's great. Sometimes people are doing self-checkout. Self-checkout is growing very fast. People will ask me, they say, why is self-checkout and self-ordering growing? I say, well, Is it because of a retail trend? I said, no, it's because we all have a phone in our pocket and we know how to use it. I mean, wouldn't it be strange if I handed you my phone and said, could you do an email for me and could you write a text? And no, I'll just do it myself. But I loved your answer on how do you look at a trend, because honestly, I don't think it's like trying to go see some wave going by or like they did this so we should.
Right.
I tell retailers, listen, spend time in your own store with your own customers, with your own associates, talk to them about what things work, what things don't work. That's where the answers are going to be. Getting one store to run beautifully, it seems, is more of the answer than trying to look at what everyone else is doing and read the tea leaves. And I love that your architecture, doesn't matter what you ask us for, I can look to them and we'll be able to put it together pretty quickly, which is great.
Well, thank you, Craig. I totally agree with you. And Chris, I'd like to get your perspective. I'd like to take a deeper dive into the white paper that FreedomPay recently published, Unleash the Power of Pay. There's so many different ways to do that, and particularly with security. And so I'd like to get your thoughts on what trends are you seeing right now in fraud prevention, and how can merchants protect all of their channels from ever-present threats?
Well, FreedomPay being a technology company, I'm obviously going to start with the technology. I think any foundation, any bedrock of security comes from the right kind of technology to solve the right kind of problems. And so, there was certainly a transformation in the fraud space with COVID, where all your consumers go online. So that's obviously where fraudsters try to move as well. And I think the industry responded. The Counts of the world, the Certifies of the world, folks that we plug into and provide as part of that interoperable architecture to really mitigate, fraud in e-com. As we all know, consumers being humans and liking to interact with brands, they're coming back in store. So what we see on the merchant response side, obviously with the technology partners, Elo and Castles, and how all that comes together, is really strong authentication when it comes to card present payments, right? So things like Apple Pay, Google Pay are quite secure, right? It's a form of EMV. EMV in and of itself, you're seeing a lot of authentication improvements to mitigate fraud on the KYC side, know your customer. Certainly in a Spectrum environment where you're enrolling consumers in a service that you have to verify identity, you have to verify credentials. You also have to be aware of insider fraud, to be candid. You've got to allow that consumer to come back into the store, but also have that rich data engagement that you had online in store. So just like if a customer is putting in sensitive information into their web browser and they see an SSL, security, they feel confident about that. I think it becomes incumbent upon the providers and folks like ourselves in the industry to provide retailers with solutions that when their customers are moving that sensitive data back in store, they know those communications are secure as well. So we've seen, what was traditionally, to summarize, a fraud strategy being just central to e-commerce, right, and the systems that are in place there, because folks are coming back in place, because it's an omni-channel discussion. You really have to think now doubly about how do we provide the same security and fraud prevention that existed online in store or in mobile or any one of those channels.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's funny, there's so much payment that, right, it used to be omni-channel. Is it online or is it in store?
Yeah.
Everyone finally figured out it's both and it's all together. And so when you talk about security, if you don't have that, nothing else we do matters. Right? But what I like is it's not easy to do that. Right? All the certifications that are needed, all the work that has to be done by serious vendors working together. What I like is once we get that done, then we can give you a solution you trust, and you can use it wherever you want to.
And then your customers are confident to shop with you.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
Offline, online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. When I think about how much we've changed and how much everything is kind of blended together, one of the things, I took a press tour yesterday of the Innovation Lab. And as I was going around and seeing all of these different startups, the message I kept hearing over and over again is that brick and mortar is a channel. And it's a channel that we need to leverage. And Ben, I'd love to get your thoughts on how the pandemic accelerated what you call omni-commerce.
Yeah.
And, I love that term, by the way, omni-commerce. I mean, I think it's become so prevalent now that we're dropping the channel. But I'd love to hear about how buying habits have changed and what the return to normal will really look like for retailers in the near term.
Yeah, I feel like I share a brain with Craig on this one for a lot of very similar topics where omnicommerce, the first time I heard that was in 2011.
Okay.
So I think it's been an ambition for a lot of, and e-commerce players trying to get into point of sale. And it's two very different operating models, but nothing like an emergency to get action going, right? So when the pandemic came along, you see e-commerce companies moving at a pace you've never seen them move to facilitate that in-store experience. And it's remarkable to watch. And people adapted to that very quickly. I'm used to an industry, and you are too, where change takes a lot of time. 9 years, 19 years in some cases to make its way through everything we do. So to have this happen so quickly was a wonder to see. And now we're at the other end of that. There's things that we talked about earlier, self-service. People are used to sort of arm's length checkout experiences now, online, coming into store, they pick up in a drive-through, even some mishmash of a lot of use cases. Contactless becoming more prevalent too. I know the original intention was to get change out of your pocket, but now it's becoming a wonderful arm's length way just to pay for things. So that's sort of here and now. So the online and offline and omni-commerce channel or otherwise is here. It's reality. It's happened. So it becomes a staple. It becomes table stakes for anything we need to do from here on out. So it's wonderful to be in this world. Where I'm thinking is somewhere where you're thinking as well, where we have a new generation of people coming into the market to buy things. Even since COVID, we've got, of course, millennials, Gen Z, and folks beyond them who are not looking at things like we did with checks and cash and then cards and then or magstripe and then EMV and so on. They're starting from phones.
Oh yeah.
Mom and dad's money.
Yeah, right.
For sure. And it's wonderful to watch that as being the next phase. We're not worried about online and offline anymore.
Right.
It's all really all one.
Yeah, it is. And to be able to not just adapt to what they will bring, but to be able to set a flag in the future and say, we believe that through ethnographic studies in stores, through our own technology experience and roadmaps where we think that these new consumers are going to be going, how they're going to want to interact. What are they going to want to buy? How are they going to want to pay for that when they're in store? How do they feel like that's a worthwhile thing that they did, that they will come back and do it again, that classic consumer habit cycle? How does that change? So I'm fascinated to see where that is. So the new normal is here.
Yes.
Omnicommerce is here.
Yeah.
The technology components are here. I'm intrigued by where that takes us next as a baseline to build from.
I agree, and it's really exciting to see this type of dynamic playing out in the store. And in our earlier conversation, Craig, you mentioned that you have a customer-facing screen, and the customer can actually initiate a transaction with their phone, and the clerk will immediately see that who this person is, their loyalty points, and all of this stuff. And that customer is going to feel seen and heard. And I think that, looking ahead to the near term of retail, in our final section, we're going to look at strategies. And it's a very complex, evolving place. I mean, we've even evolved in our roundtables. I mean, just the fact that we're physical now really shows that we've made some progress. But looking ahead, there's so many different challenges that are impacting retailers that it can feel overwhelming at times. And one of the things that I loved about the FreedomPay white paper, Unleash the Power of Pay, is they took that great big swath of challenges and they broke it out. They isolated all the different impacts that are affecting retail today: political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal. And in much the same way, I would like to give our panelists a chance to think about some strategies that retailers can take away from this discussion that will help them in the near future. It will help them succeed.
Boy, I get the pressure of the final question.
Will he win?
Right? Yeah. So I think strategically, our thoughts certainly align with a lot of the dialogue today. At the end of the day, you have a rapidly changing consumer whose demand is changing. His demand is being influenced by the technology that they interact with, right? It's almost like this self-fulfilling prophecy. There is an opportunity for retailers to change that dynamic with innovative solutions. And so, what we've seen in the research, what we've seen across our spectrum of customers and our partners as well, is that at the end of the day, it's those solutions which really ultimately learn how to play well with others are going to win. And those are going to be the ones that the retailers adopt, because change is too great, specialization is too great for any one company to ultimately provide everything. And so you're really entering into this very democratized view of technology and how it all has to converge together at that retailer. And I can shamelessly say, with full shame, that as a Spectrum customer, they pulled it off. You walk into that store, and when you sign up, in my case, for fiber internet, you walk up and it's a self-service to enroll them at the store. It's provide all of my sensitive information directly into a secure device. It's a completely digital experience and takes it from there and fulfills it on a digital, mobile the rest of the way to a true endless aisle, which then gets me to download their app and manage my experience, right? And so when you think about, well, what's the strategy? The strategy is technology. The question is, how do you deploy a technical strategy to get where you need to be in front of a rapidly changing consumer?
Well said. Well said.
That was a great
Yeah,
PSA.
and those are great points. But also, in your white paper, you also made a very good point, which is, why would somebody invest in technology during an economic downturn? I think a better question to ask is, what's the cost of not investing in these technologies, which are clearly the way of the future?
Yeah. I tell you, our view is that, the winners almost always invest during a downturn. It's probably the oldest business strategy around, and it works. The great part is, most of the things that we're all talking about, the cost of implementation has come down dramatically, right? But the efficiency it brings to a store environment is huge, right? Think things like self-ordering and self-checkout are kind of obvious, right? That you can let your associates work on things like selling and building value instead of, using someone's phone for them.
Right.
But other things like BOPUS, right? BOPUS got really, it was going before the pandemic, but like everything, it got really going. Well, working the kinks out of that, having the right technology so that when I show up, I can pick up what I need. If I have a return, you make it easy. Just making shopping an easy, nice experience, but also making it secure. That is done with these experts who this is all we think about, right? And if we can do it for you in your store, great. It may be different in someone else's store. And if we can adapt to that, I think you can take costs down. I mean, even environmentally, people don't think about it. The energy use of the gear that's being built today is probably 60% lower than what was being built a few years ago. So you're even doing some things that are taking those kind of costs down, the social costs down. So I think there's a lot of reasons for leaders to invest, even when we don't know the economy for the next several months.
I kind of look at it as, why not? This is the time to be prepared for when the market does rebound. Invest in your technology, but also looking at that customer experience through that study, you will identify definitely new technology that's going to make that experience ideal for your customers and for your employees. You're going to find efficiencies and find some cost savings just by streamlining things. And again, using the technology versus maybe having someone doing something manual or having two solutions where you can merge those together. When you talk about open platforms, bring two things together and really just streamline for the customer. So to me, it's just a perfect time to do it. And I would say that we did it and it was beneficial to our organization.
Great to hear.
Something that came to mind, Craig, when you were describing the accessibility of technology and the lowering cost. So something that has been a barrier recently is, of course, the supply chain. With the pandemic, shipping, air freight, and just component supply has always been an issue. That's thankfully behind us, and we're somewhat through the backlog that built up in terms of demand. So the technology is readily available now. There are new technologies that have come to market that have kind of been held back by the pausing of the world, as it were. So it'll be exciting when we come back here next year to see.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's going to be an incredible year from this baseline that we're on. That wasn't the answer to the question. That was good.
No, it's good. It's a great point.
The hounds are released.
Yeah.
We get to build upon all of this now. I don't have too much else to add on top of what you said. Incredible answers. Other than when it comes to solving these kinds of technology problems, these kind of human problems with this exchange of value, you're not alone. We were joking beforehand that we could spend 4 hours standing up and talking
easily
non-stop without taking a breath about these topics. We absolutely love these kinds of challenges. It's what we do. It's what we live for. So yeah, it's genuine excitement to see what's going to be happening in the world this year, especially in terms of the technology that enables commerce. We're going to be driving a lot of that as well, because that's what we wake up every day to do. So yeah, just very excited about what happens. You're not alone in this industry.
No, absolutely
do
not.
this all the time.
And to Ben's point, we could talk for hours and hours about this technology, and we do, but that's so you don't have to. As a retailer, I promise you, you're not going to have to pop any tiles. You're not going to have to lay any cable. Implementation, you're not going to have to brace for impact when you hear that word. It's never been easier to innovate and iterate in the digital first world. So come and be part of Next Level Commerce. We'd love to have you with us on this journey. It just keeps getting better and better. And now I'd like to thank our panelists and my host. And I encourage you to follow the FreedomPay and Market Scale Next Level Commerce. We'll be back again with another roundtable. Thank you again.